It's Thursday, the 15th of August. Listen, thank you so much for joining us. And a great call, because this is going to be a big show. First Euro edition of the brand new season. Loads to discuss. James Horncastle's here. Hey, James.
Hello, James.
Nice to see you.
Good to be back.
Julien Laurens is here.
Bonjour.
In the PSG shirt.
In a PSG shirt, 1999-2000 away shirt. So I think Anelka has returned to the club. Very excited, young players, and didn't really happen.
Have they brought this shirt back?
No, this is the original that I got at the time.
Right.
Yeah, my brother had it for a long time somehow. I don't know. He nicked it from my mum's house, and then he gave it back to me this summer.
Conservative estimate, say on a scale of from 0 to Imelda Marcos, how many PSG jerseys do you actually own?
No, I had loads, but they've disappeared somehow. Like my brother's has a few, I think.
Okay.
I would say right now maybe 15.
Only the 15.
Yeah, it's not bad.
Okay. All right. On the way today, we've got Seb Stafford-Bloor.
Yeah.
From Germany, and Pol Ballus from sunny Spain. One or two changes.
I think he would say.
Catalonia, yeah. That's fair. But yeah, a lot of people asking about our personnel changes, about Rafa and Alvaro getting called into the boardroom by producer Charlie.
Yeah.
Alvaro essentially is going to be continuing his work elsewhere. He's got some new stuff as well. He's going to be working on Serie A.
Yeah.
As you said, James.
My mentorship is complete.
Yeah, there we go.
You two used to.
I think James still does. We salute the magnificent Alvaro Romeo and also say happy birthday to him because it was his birthday yesterday.
Yeah.
So
5 years of glorious service Alvaro provided.
Yeah, it was great.
Rafa, what words would you have for Rafa?
Happy birthday as well? No? It's not his birthday.
Rafa's retired, no?
Yeah, he's
changed direction.
Exactly.
The island that he bought, he finally gets to enjoy it.
Indeed so. Indeed so. Anyway, but looking forward to hearing from Paul and Seb later on. Shout out to Greg, by the way, Greg, if you're listening, who stepped up to me in a street in Dakenyama last, what day was that? Monday, actually.
Okay.
And said, hey, are you James Horncastle?
This was in Japan, yeah?
This was in Japan, yeah. So,
and what did you say?
I said no. I couldn't make any claim to be James Horncastle. And he went, I'm so sorry, thinking that it was just he confused me with somebody. So I said, no, but I am James Richardson.
And he
said no. No, he did. He did then return and say, I'm so sorry, I got your names confused. You are James Richardson. He was a lovely chap. And an American, Greg. I think. Yeah, Greg. Yeah. Listens to the show. That's why I say shout out to you, Greg.
Yeah.
If listener, you're not Greg, sorry for that, but shout out to you as well. I think that's covered all the listeners. But yeah, loads to talk about today. Just last night we had the Super Cup. Jules, how did you feel about seeing Kylian in another club shirt?
I thought he looked beautiful in white.
Did you?
I won't lie, yeah. He looked sharp, he looked fit. That shirt, by the way, we've bought the shirts already in the Laurens family, in white, in orange, the third kit. So we still very much Mbappe, still very much in part of the Mbappe family. And I just wanted him to do well. The first half, it wasn't great. The second half, I like his team much better. And I'm glad he scored on his debut. 67 minutes, it took him to score his first goal. So this is his ratio.
Set up by Jude Bellingham, but a lovely finish.
And it's the, I don't know actually how you say in English, but the contre-appel from Kylian. So he goes toward Bellingham to make the Atalanta defender follow him, and then he changes direction to go the other way, and Bellingham sees it, and Bellingham passes the ball. So the appel contre-appel, kind of like
Je m'appelle.
Can run, counter run if you want to go into another space.
Right.
Perfect, and then with no position then because the defender was still on the first run.
Yes.
Then it's a really good finish. So yeah.
Yeah. The other goal from Fede Valverde after a very nice setup by Vini Jr. What did you make of Atalanta, James?
I thought they played well, particularly until the first goal.
First half, yeah.
Because
that Pasalic header at the start of the second.
Yeah, incredible save from Courtois. Courtois picking up where he left off in the Champions League final. But considering all the problems that Atalanta had going into that game, Scamacca does his ACL, Scalvini did his ACL, you had Cup Miners basically saying, I'm really sorry, here's a doctor's note to say I'm too stressed to play for Atalanta because I want to go to Juventus, so he couldn't play. El Bilal Toure, one of their big signings last summer, who didn't really play all that much because he picked up an injury, he was left out of the squad. So I was thinking, oh God, this could be, 4-5-0. With the Galacticos and with Culo Ancelotti there on the bench. And instead, no, I thought they were better for long spells in the first half.
Yeah, they kept the ball well. The second half, it could have been easily 4, to be fair, or 5.
Yeah, with the appel, the contre-appel.
Appel and contre-appel.
Yeah.
I think a quick appel to Pol Ballus is where we're going to start today because Real Madrid and their chances in the Liga are one of the top stories ahead of this weekend. Part 1, we're talking about La Liga, and Pol Ballus joins us from a sweltering Barcelona. How are you, Pol?
Good. I'm hot here.
Yes.
But yeah, just like keeping up with the Barcelona summer, which is not a bad thing to do, if I'm honest. If you have to work, it can be a bit tougher, but yeah, I'm not going to complain. I've been in Manchester, so I'm not going to complain about this.
I see. I tell you what else is hot right now, and that is Spanish football. What a summer the Spanish game has been having. Real Madrid, Champions League winners, now Super Cup winners as well. Spain winning the Euros, Spain winning the under-19s, Spain beating France in the Olympic final as well.
Great final.
You also had Barcelona in the Women's Champions League and the Women's under-19 Euros as well. It's insane. Every single final, a Spanish club wins. Or Spanish side wins.
No. Yeah, I just think that it just speaks a lot about the sort of mentality that we have here in Spain. I think that as a country, we are like really used to compete. I don't think like when I was in England, I was quite surprised to see like the Premier League teams that they don't have like youth football until the under 16 category. They don't have like regular leagues and everything. And I think that this fact that in Spain is everywhere, like from the age of 5 or 6 or 7 years old, like all the Barcelona players that play for Barca, they are used to compete and they know like what it represents to, or what it means to represent Barcelona and how you have to perform, like the standards. And this sort of mentality, I think that it grows into a player and it translates into the national teams, which in my opinion, they might not have like the most talented players, because I think that at the Olympics, for instance, I think that France had more talented players than Spain for sure. But yeah, they have this sort of mentality and this ability to assemble teams that it's really good.
Most recent triumph Wednesday night, we were just talking about it, the Super Cup win over Atalanta. And Real Madrid's performance with the season in prospect, Pol, one of the few doubts, I guess, about whether they would be able to repeat as Spanish champions, is how much trouble it would be for Ancelotti to fit everybody together. In terms of that, it was a great response the way they played on Wednesday.
Yeah, absolutely. I think that they played really, really good, especially in the second half. I think that despite like all the new additions and this sort of ego problem that some might say that like Real Madrid could have, I think that they sorted out quite well the idea of balancing this squad. I also think that they keep like this sort of mentality that at some point in the game, all the Real Madrid players say like, right, okay, we're going to start playing a football game now. And I think that it arrived in the European Super Cup with a Courtois save to Mario Pasalic. That was a wake-up call, in my opinion, for like Real Madrid. And they said, okay, we are going to play football now. And they did. And yeah, I don't think that that's a really encouraging sign for all the Spanish sides in La Liga, because now, I mean, we all have the feeling here that it's going to be like every club against Real Madrid. They are the biggest favorites by all means. And it's going to be a nice way to see like how Ancelotti tries to find this good balance that he showed, but like for the long term, let's see how the harmony of the dressing room keeps up. And a lot of challenges, but for sure, Real Madrid have to be considered up there as the best team in Spain right now.
Also, because they won the last championship by 10 points, and that was without Courtois for most of the season, and Militao, Alaba out as well. Who do you see challenging them potentially for La Liga this time, Paul?
I mean, if you ask me like from a like rational perspective, you would have to say that there's like no club at this level. But in football, like it doesn't work that way. Like it doesn't mean that if you had this great season last year and now you add in Kylian Mbappe and you have Courtois, it means that you're going to be even better, because we don't know that. I would say that Barcelona are still going to be like the closer competitors. I don't think that Barcelona has changed that much or improved the squad that much from last season. The only addition is Dani Olmo. But what they hope basically is that the biggest turning point is going to be Hansi Flick from the bench to insert like a new mentality, a new work ethic. Everyone in Barcelona is saying like how much they work in the physical department, how better equipped they are right now. We are going to have to see it, because like in the last preseason friendly that we saw against Monaco, Barcelona played really, really badly. So if they were waiting for wake-up calls, that was a big one. They're going to make their debut this season in Valencia in Saturday. We are going to be there at the Athletic. And then Atletico de Madrid, we have to mention Atletico de Madrid up there as well, because in my opinion, it's possibly, apart from Real Madrid, the best transfer window. It's been an expensive one, but I think that's a really good one as well. Julian Alvarez is perfect for Simeone. Sorloth, former Crystal Palace legend, is going to be a really good partnership as well. And yeah, I think that Atletico de Madrid has assembled a squad. Now it's a challenge for Simeone not to defend himself with like 5 defenders and 5 midfielders and like, no one up front, because he has the potential, he has the firepower up there. And yeah, he has to prove it. And then like, I think that all the other teams are going to be like on a lower level. I don't see, I'm probably like anticipating here, but I don't see a Girona this season in La Liga. I don't see a team like in that regards.
Not even Athletic after keeping Nico Williams.
Yeah, but I think that Athletic Bilbao is like a step ahead of Girona for the quality of the players that they have. They are the team that I was going to mention, like keep an eye on them. But I think that they are going to have like a special focus on like European football, because they are playing in the Europa League this season. The final is in San Mamés, which is something that they really have in mind. They just want to play the final at home. It's one of the things that they've like insisted to Nico Williams in terms of like, right, not leave us this season because you have this. This is going to be like an exciting season. But yeah, they've signed Álvaro Jaló as well from Sporting Braga, which is a really good signing. He's been great in preseason. And yeah, like the excitement and the buzz around the club, around Athletic Bilbao is like amazing as well.
Excellent. I've got a couple of questions, Paul. One, what's happening with Conor Gallagher's putative move to Atletico?
Well, that's the $1 million question. I think that we should have to ask like a lot of Middle Asians and like people who is trying to make this deal happening. But yeah, it seems that Atletico basically is finding a way to offload some big chunk of salaries and get some money like in signings to make room for Conor Gallagher. It is unclear if this is going to happen at this point. There's like this sort of battle with the salary room in La Liga that they have to fight. And it's basically more of a business matter than like a football matter. We know that Atletico de Madrid have been scouting Javi Guerra as well, a Valencia midfielder that could be a replacement if Gallagher ends up like not happening. But yeah, it's a bit of a gray area right now. It's going to be something that is clearly going to be like decided by more like by financial means than for any sort of sporting planification around here. Okay.
You mentioned the salary limits, the salary limitations there. And is that why, even though Dani Olmo's the big signing for Barcelona, there's every chance he might not be able to feature for a while?
Yeah. Well, Barcelona hope that he can feature as soon as possible. But if you ask me for my personal opinion, and that's like from what I'm seeing, what I'm hearing, what I can guess from the business activity, I don't think that Dani Olmo is going to be available for selection on the weekend against Valencia. Basically because Barcelona needs to offload wages before they can register new ones. And as far as we know as well, for the first game, Hansi Flick prefers to have Íñigo Martínez, who is not registered either, to have him in ahead of Dani Olmo, because they have like a defensive problem as well with Araujo injured. There's only Eric Garcia, Pau Cubarsí, and Christensen as centre-backs available from the first team, and Christensen is going to be used in midfield. So basically they need some more backup like in defense. And possibly we're going to hear that Barcelona is going to say that, Dani Olmo joined only like a week and a half ago. He's not ready yet to play, so we decided just not to register him. But we all know that if they could, he would be registered and he would be traveling to Valencia. But yeah, it's a bit of the messy situation that Barcelona are in. There's a lot of La Liga clubs who are in this situation, by the way, because of the strict rules that La Liga has. But yeah, it's going to be one to keep a close eye on. Let's see what Dani Olmo can do in Barcelona.
Okay. One of those clubs, among the many clubs that are suffering this problem, clearly not Real Madrid, though, despite the incredible wage bill they must have.
Yeah, but they've managed to do things in terms of like the income that they have, building a stadium in a time like during the pandemic. That was a really clever timing, and now they have like a well-oiled machine that is just working. And it all adds up. Now I think that the biggest issue that they will have is not going to be like a financial way of fitting all the salaries. It's going to be like how they manage this peak of a squad, because last night we saw how Arda Güler only played in the last minutes of the games, how Luka Modric was not a starter and he had to come out later. So you're going to be able to manage that. You have Endrick as well, who is a 16-year-old who you want him to play at some point. So with Mbappe, Vinicius and Rodrigo, I don't see a way of him like playing very, very often. So yeah, let's see how it goes. But I think that this is going to be like their biggest challenge.
Okay. But one last thing, Lamine Yamal had such an amazing Euros. Currently in the headlines because of the terrible events surrounding his father, who was stabbed in a car park.
Yeah. That was the unfortunate events that happened last night. We don't know all the details of what happened, apart from that 3 people have been arrested for attempted murder. We know from sources close to the players' camp that Lamine Yamal's dad's life is not at risk. He's in a stable condition. He's still in hospital trying to recover from that. And that Lamine Yamal has been training. He's been in constant contact with his closest people, with his dad. But he has been in training, and he's still expected to travel on the weekend to Valencia now that the situation is expected to be more of in a stable place. But news that we don't like to hear, and that hopefully can be resolved soon for sure.
Yeah, 100%. Barcelona visiting, as you mentioned, Valencia on Saturday night. Real Madrid are at Mallorca on Sunday night. Monday night, It's Villarreal Atletico. Paul, looking forward to hearing about those games and more from you next week.
It's going to be a pleasure.
Thank you so much, Paul.
Thanks, Paul.
Cheers, Paul.
Thank you. See you guys.
Cheers. Balakrishnan says, which club in Europe will do a Bologna or a Girona or a Bayer Leverkusen this season?
A Bayer Leverkusen.
Yeah.
Win the league, go undefeated in the league.
Yeah. I mean, who's going to be a surprise, I think, is Balakrishnan's point there.
Or Brest.
Yeah? Or a Brest.
Yeah, Brest, I know your favorite club.
The Brest.
More uplift with Brest. Yeah. Okay, great.
It's a good question there.
All right. Well done for that, Balakrishnan. Ricardo Mantio on a similar tip. Who will be the surprise package in the Champions League this season? Not us, probably.
Might not be us.
Might not be us.
Ciao, goal show.
But would Atalanta count if Atalanta do well?
Yeah, come on.
The Europa League
I mean,
winners.
to think about these two questions, I mean, I don't think Bologna will be... I don't think they'll fade in the way that people expect them to in Serie A after Thiago Motta moved to Juventus and Calafiori went to Arsenal and Zirkzee went to Man United. I think they've made a good coaching appointment with Vincenzo Italiano, who's obviously got to a couple of Conference League finals with Fiorentina in back-to-back years. So I think they'll still be decent. Their sporting director is the guy who was the sporting director at Atalanta and Chievo when they were both fairy tales. So I would trust him to be able to still assemble a really good team. And in the Champions League, Atalanta, have got so much European experience over that. I mean, the great thing about that Super Cup was people were pointing out that it was 14 years ago on the same day they were playing the second round of the Coppa Italia against Foligno, and that was the first game of Antonio Pedcassi, who is the president. It's his second spell as president. So this cycle that they've been on began with that second round game in the Coppa Italia against Foligno, and more recently got to a European Super Cup against Real Madrid, which shows how far they've come.
Right.
But I mean, if you can go all the way in the Europa League, which is a taxing competition, then playing 8 Champions League games is not going to phase these guys.
Is it still just 8? Do they not have?
No, you got 8 because it's
8
6.
instead of 6.
Oh,
now,
and then
Yeah. And the thing is, I suppose the question with Atalanta is you've got Gasperini, who's been there a long time now, 7 or 8 years. He's been able to build like 3.5 teams, I would say. But this is the first team that's actually won something. And it's a group of players who you're seeing this with Cup miners at the moment. He's trying to force this move to Juventus. I think it's a little bit like Napoli last year, where players have won the league title at Napoli, and they're like, okay, we're sort of done here. Yeah, we've done what we came here to do. Let's move on. And I think that's the risk with Atalanta, is there might be some players, not just cup miners, who are looking around in the final fortnight of this transfer window and saying, maybe this is the time for me to move on to something bigger and better. And I think the way they handle that will be very, very interesting.
All right. James Anderson sent us an email.
Okay.
Bless.
Jimmy Anderson.
The Jimmy Anderson.
He said, I wondered if you could cover off where we can watch all our favourite European football this season. I mean, James, you could have Googled this, to be fair. As in what streaming services, channels, etc. As far as I can see, it's still Serie A and Liga on TNT. But no, James, it's not. Because TNT have just said they're not going to pick up Liga rights.
Yeah, they haven't renewed their contract with Liga, so it could be somebody else in England, I guess.
Could it be?
Yeah, could it be? Otherwise, IPTV is your best friend, Jimmy Anderson.
Mike says, what's going on with the Liga TV rights? It's looking fairly bleak.
No, bleak in the sense that they got much less money than they were hoping for.
Domestically,
yeah. They wanted around 700 million euros per season. They got 500 between the Zone and beIN Sport. And there's a lot of clubs feel like obviously it's much less money for them, so that means less signing. That means maybe selling more their young talents or things like that, which is a bit disappointing. I think the league have messed up completely. I think they were expecting to go back to international rights, channels from all around the world to come and increase those international rights. But they seem to forget that Kylian was leaving, for example, and that without Mbappe now, and PSG not really replacing him with another superstar or somebody like a massive name, certainly not yet, it's obviously less appealing for if you're an American channel or a British channel, an Italian channel, whatever. So at least there's money domestically with those TV rights. Internationally, they will get there. I don't know how much in the end it will get, but somebody will get them. But right now, you can't see Ligue 1 in England or in Great Britain. You can't see it in the US either because they still haven't renewed that deal yet. So there's big countries where Ligue 1 right now, unfortunately, is not visible.
Good Lord. Let's talk a little bit about PSG and their plans and everybody else's chances of deposing them from the top of the Ligue 1 pile, Jules. You're saying that they haven't bought anyone yet for Kylian Mbappe. Is there a bit of a sensation that they've actually got quite a lot of people already up front?
No, it's not even that, because I think they would have liked Kvaratskhelia, they would have liked those kind of guys, Rafael Leao. I think they tried and they kind of like sensed the market a bit. They went to Napoli, they went to Milan. So those discussions happen. It's just the price was maybe not right. They were complicated deals. I mean, Kvaratskhelia especially. And they certainly didn't want to spend too much money over the top. If you look at Joao Neves, who is maybe the kind of biggest signing that they've made, is 60 million euros when he had a release clause of 120. So they clearly were not ready to pay the release clause, and they said to Benfica, listen, either you're happy to negotiate and we can bring the price down and we help each other kind of thing, or we don't do this deal. And Desiré Doué is a similar one with Rennes. And they two young players, 19-year-olds, who are super, super talented, but still very young and very raw in many respects. So it's a shift again in terms of direction from the club towards more of a collective strength and unity, which is what Luis Enrique wants. So no Mbappe anymore, or Messi or Neymar, etc. And instead, younger players, some French, some not French, to hopefully
Paris born and bred, some not.
Some not, that's true. Yeah. And I guess the fact that Warren Zaïre-Emery is now the poster boy a bit at only 18 shows you that, things have changed.
Okay. 9 points, the winning margin for Paris Saint-Germain at the end of last season. a lot of people are suggesting that this could be a chance for somebody else to come in and take the title. Marseille getting mentioned a lot.
Has to be. And
Really?
Roberto De Zerbi is the biggest name that has arrived in France this summer. It's an incredible coup, I think, from Marseille to have been able to convince him to sign, to come. Remember 2 years ago, before he took the Brighton job, he was in the running for that job, and they took Igor Tudor instead. Not that Tudor did a bad job, but between De Zerbi and Tudor at the time, I thought it was a no-brainer, but they decided. And now I'm glad he's there. He gave a great interview in L'Equipe today when saying, like, if you win here in Marseille, it's even more beautiful than anywhere else, which is true. He also knows how difficult it is. But to be fair to them, they promised him signings and players that he would like. And they did that. I mean, Mason Greenwood, whether we like or not what happened off the field, he's a player that De Zerbi wanted. He's somebody that he thinks he can take to the next level, and that can bring a lot to the team. So they've signed him. I thought they've been really good. Lilian Brassier from Brest, one of the best centre-backs last season, they went and got him. So it's really good what they've done so far. They signed 10 players, plus De Zerbi.
Right.
And we'll have a really good squad.
Pierre-Emile
Højbjerg. Yeah, Højbjerg, whose mum is French. So for him, I think at some point playing in France meant a lot.
Mother tongue, nice. And our favourite lawn striker, Eli Wahi.
Yes.
Yeah.
Who 2 years ago did this interview on a local radio in Montpellier, and they asked him, what club would you never ever play for?
No.
And obviously him as a Paris born and bred kid, and all of that, he straight away responded, Marseille. Never it's impossible. And obviously now he said, I've matured. But I can understand. What
do the tranquil Marseille ultras think about this? How have they received him?
And De Zerbi as well, and the whole kind of project.
So De Zerbi is, when he signed, I remember we were at the Euros in Germany, and I did a few shows on French radio, and some Marseille fans were like, why has he won? And I'm like, really? Like, who can say this is not a good appointment to have De Zerbi in Marseille? And they were like, yeah, but...
It's not like anyone ever said that when De Zerbi came to Brighton, was it? Nobody said...
No, but for example, Sergio Conceição was the other one. So at some point, you look like between De Zerbi and Conceição. And Conceição obviously has Champions League experience, a lot of it, and quite far. And
won the title in...
Yeah, loads of trophies in Portugal. But I was like, this is mind-blowing if you don't think that De Zerbi is a good thing for Marseille and for Liga in general. So I think the Ultras will be happy with De Zerbi. For why, it depends. If he scores straight away, they will forget that he's from Paris, and that one day he said he would never want to play for Marseille. So it's always the same thing. Parisian have played in Marseille before, and the other way around too. So it's just
amazing that Marseille have made an appointment that is going to make Jules watch Marseille.
Nah, no chance. Wow. They're still the big...
They finished 8th last season. That's got a lot of ground to make up. But you see them as favourites ahead of, say, last year's runners-up Monaco, who stayed with the same manager, kept most of the stars from last year.
Yeah, I think Monaco will be better this season, and we saw that in the win that Paul mentioned against Barcelona, where they were outstanding and they won 3-0 and they were really, really good. Youssouf Fofana is on his way to Milan. Wissam Ben Yedder has left the club. So the two big names that are not there anymore, they replaced Ben Yedder with another striker, young striker from Antwerp who's really good. They've... Ileni Kena, sorry, that's it. Who used to be a PSG, so his Paris born and bred as well, who used to be at the PSG academy and then left to get more playing time.
Right.
In midfield, Lamine Camara came from Metz to replace Fofana too. So they've done their good. Okay. They've done good business with young players, so they would be good. But Marseille and De Zerbi have to be really the second force.
Here's another team I'm going to throw at you, Lyon. If they could maintain the momentum of the end of last season when they were
Stonewise, very much there.
So they won 12 of their last 15 league games last season, became the first club ever to be bottom of the table halfway through and then finish in the top half.
Yeah.
What are their prospects?
They signed Mikotadze, the Georgian, the half Franco-Georgian striker who did really well at the Euros, who's going to wear the number 69.
Where's the French half of his heritage from?
Born in Lyon.
Okay.
Grew up in France from Georgian parents who had emigrated to France. So I think that counts, no?
Definitely.
What did you think? Do you think I just made that up?
No, I was curious whether he was Parisian.
And the number 69, before everybody ask, is 69 is the number of the department in Lyon, where he was born.
Okay.
So like
I
mine
wasn't
is
gonna
90.
ask that.
I don't know about 69. I've had a few messages online about why the number 69. Here you go. That's why.
Yeah.
Good signing.
I mean, to end footballers.
Well, when you think about their last season as well, you know, sort of what, first half, bottom of the table.
Oh my God.
Top to bottom. Sorry, James. Sorry, listener. I'm there now. Right. Magnificent.
It's a long time.
That's. I mean, it's strong.
It's very strong to start the season. I mean, so good signings. Niakate from Nottingham Forest for 30 million euros, which is a lot of money.
Wow,
But yeah,
that's a lot of money.
they're there. Thiago Almada is going to come in January, which is also a very good signing. So no, Lyon looking good shape, good place.
Okay.
And they would be
I'm
that
seeing a real title.
I think so. You're right.
Battle all these clubs.
Yeah, Lille.
Maybe PSG are just going to rock on and do
No,
better.
maybe
Here's
it's-
another one, Lille, who put out Rangers from the whatever qualifying round.
Fenerbahce.
And Mourinho's Fenerbahce.
No, Fenerbahce.
Oh, they put out Fenerbahce, didn't they? Sorry, it was
Yeah.
Dynamo Kiev
Yeah,
who
that's
put out
right.
Rangers.
Yeah.
But so Pep Genesio.
Pep Genesio, they're doing well. They did well. They played really well in the first leg. Second leg, they defended and then should have gone through with that extra time, continue late goal. Jonathan David, who's still there, which is massive for them if he stays.
Yes.
Because obviously we thought he was going to go. He's got 1 year left on his contract. But because they sold Lenny Yoro so well, they could afford to keep him and let him go on a free next summer, which is, I think, very likely what's going to happen. So then he can go to Milan, he can come to England as a free agent. And now they're not under the pressure of having to sell him to balance their book because Lenny Yoro was sold for so much money at Manchester United. So if they can keep Jonathan David and qualify for the Champions League, they need one more round of qualifiers against Slavia Prague, which is doable for them. Yeah, so it's good for Pep Genesio to start it well.
Crikey. Will Still is the new manager of Lens
Yeah,
because he's replacing Frank Hayes, who's now at Nice.
exactly. Yeah, so that's going to be interesting as well. A few musical chairs for. So the new Reims manager is Luca Elsner, who was at Le Havre, who did a good job to keeping them and got them promoted first, and then kept them in the league. So yeah, all of that is interesting because
Strasbourg. No longer Patrick Vieira's team.
No.
Liam Rosenia.
Yeah, the son of Leroy, our friend Leroy
Very much
Rosinho.
so,
Yeah, and good luck to him. It's not an easy place because of the Blue Coat ownership and Chelsea and the ultras not being happy, and a squad that seems to get younger and younger and younger every day. But why not? Hull City did some really good things. Overall, I think it was difficult for him in a difficult league in the Championship, but it could be very interesting to see what he can do.
Okay. One last thing, Jules, from me. I'm sure there's other things that you might want to mention, but Bordeaux.
Yeah.
What a story that over
Very sad
the
story.
summer.
Yeah, back down to the 4th division now.
4th division.
Yeah, in National 2, they will start. Gerard Lopez, our friend, who sank a few clubs before and did the same with them. Basically, gambling on the fact. Yeah, very consistent, you're right. Gambling on the fact that they would get promoted. So kind of budgeted for promotion and the money coming to them because they would be in Liga, except that they didn't get promoted. So the 40 million euros that were missing, he didn't want to put them in his own pocket. He tried to find new investors like the Fenway Group, for example, at Liverpool, and in the end, that didn't happen. So it's really sad because they lost their professional status, which means that all the players are amateurs. They lose their academy, which is obviously massive because it used to be a really good one. And a lot of the players who were in this team in the 2nd division this season came from the academy too. So it's a real shame because it's a massive, massive French club.
Okay. Season begins Friday night with Havre against Paris Saint-Germain. Yeah. And that's now the Ligue McDonald's.
McDonald's, indeed. Yeah. Why not,
I mean, Uber Eats.
Yeah, we stay in the same kind of industry.
But for a nation like France, hasn't there been any kickback at the top tier being sponsored by? Has there been?
Yeah, a lot of moaning at the time. But no, there's nothing. It's not going to change. There's nothing we can do.
Certainly isn't.
Yeah.
All right. On next to Italy. Champions League, we mentioned the Champions League with Lille trying to battle their way through. New format, of course, gets going in September.
A format that Jose Mourinho does not like.
He doesn't like it.
Because he's not in it?
That is true. He is in the Europa League, which has also been reformatted.
Yeah, and he said Fenerbahce right now are the level of Europa League, which is complete BS, right? Because they still should beat Lille. And then had they done that, they would have played against Slavia Prague and would have been favourite with the players they have and Mourinho on the bench. So for him now, after failing to go into the Champions League, to say, yeah, but it's okay because our level is the Europa League.
We would never have won the Champions League. No one was saying win the Champions League. We would never reach the knockout stages of the Champions League. No one was saying reach the knockout stages of the Champions League. Just qualify for it.
Exactly.
He ran through all the hits, really, didn't he, post-game?
Yeah.
Did he not also throw in "If I Speak"?
Yes. If he said "if" about 10 times in the space of 30 seconds.
Right.
And yeah, he was then asked, Jose, why all these ifs? And he was like, well, if we are allowed to compete in the Europa League and if we can go far in the Europa League. And he was referring back to the Europa League final the year before last when Roma lost to Sevilla because he thought that Anthony Taylor had robbed them of the result with some bad refereeing. So yeah, clearly UEFA has got it in for Jose. They don't want him in the Champions League. They don't want him to win the Europa League.
I fear for him a bit because this is really early in the season that he seems ready to explode. Usually it's maybe a bit later in the season. Now, mid-August, to be already like in that kind of mindset.
They are one game in, to be fair. They got started last weekend in the Super League. Other leagues are already underway.
Sorry, just to touch on the Super League. Michy Batshuayi. He's become like one of like a very exclusive set of players to have played for Besiktas, Fenerbahce and Galatasaray.
Wow.
Yeah.
As a free agent
you talked about
time as well,
Eli Wahi saying, I'd never play for Marseille. This guy has just said, oh yeah, whatever. Rivalries. Who cares?
There you go.
Amazing.
Portugal, they're underway. Eredivisie's already started. PSV got a nice big win to get things underway. 5-1 against Valvik. Ajax also won at the weekend. Yeah. Jordan Henderson didn't feature, but he's still very much on their books.
Okay.
Still
what happened to him? It was still on holidays because of the Euros?
Don't know.
Going so far with England at the Euros?
Bundesliga gets going the weekend after this one. They've got Super Cup this weekend. We'll be hearing from Seb Stafford-Bloor on that and all things German very, very shortly, but not until after. Have a quick chat, just a quick one. About Serie A, where you'll recall last season Inter were the champions, finishing fully 19 points clear. Oof. Their rivals have gone back. They've
tooled up.
Yeah.
Changed coach.
They brought in new managers. Juve, Milan, Napoli. What's in store, James Horncastle?
Well, remember this time last year, Napoli won the league by double-digit figures. They won it with 5 games to spare. And even though Spalletti left, they were like, they've kept most of the team together. The only guy who's left is Kim Min-jae, their centre-back. And Inter, I think, are better placed, however, than Napoli to actually retain the title. Napoli had the worst title defence ever, if you don't count the Grande Torino side or the...
which would be pretty unfair.
Which is very unfair in 1950-51. So I think, Inter, they've obviously retained Simone Inzaghi, extended his contract. Their captain and the league's top scorer, Lautaro Martinez, had just signed a new 5-year contract and was probably the hero of Argentina's Copa America win. He's the only striker in the league who scores 20 goals every year for the last 3 years. He's not like one of these busted flushes like Osimhen or Vlahovic who has 1 year and it's good and then they don't back it up. And they've added rather than subtracted. In other years, Inter have had to sell players because of the financial situation at the club. So remember last year, Brozovic went to Saudi Arabia, Onana went to Man United. Before that, Perisic went to Spurs, Skriniar went to PSG. Year before that, Lukaku to Chelsea, Hakimi to PSG. This time, no one's gone out. They've just added Zielinski, one of the best midfield players in Serie A, part of Napoli's title-winning team on a free transfer, and Mehdi Taremi as well.
So exciting.
On a free transfer. So even though both those players are injured going into the starting weekend, there's a lot to believe that Inter can be the first team to retain the title since Juventus at the end of their 9-year winning streak.
Which of their rivals' sets of supporters should be most optimistic, do you think? Juve, Scott, for example, asking, I've already put my ACCA, I put Juve on our season-long ACCA with friends to win Serie A. They are laughing at me. Does it have any chance to? I mean, it's still Juve, right? Question mark. They've made some very exciting moves.
They have. They've made the biggest move of the summer in Serie A, which is to sign Douglas Luiz from Aston Villa for more than 50 million, although they sent a couple of kids the other way, Illing Jr. and Badenekea, which I think if their former chief football officer, Fabio Paratici, had done that swap deal, people would be raising their eyebrows, saying, what's going on? It's before June 30th. Why are you moving these players around like that, Aston Villa? But I think while they have made some interesting deals, I mean, Kefren Turam, for example, coming from Nice, they've focused on the midfield and getting that right, because I think ever since Miralem Pjanic went to Barcelona in one of those weird swap deals, they've never been able to get their midfield going. So they've addressed that, but I think they're incomplete, really. I think, the
arrival of Thiago Motta, though, such a significant move, potentially.
Yeah, Motta, really exciting. Yeah, the brightest young mind in Italian coaching. Obviously got Bologna into the Champions League for the first time in 60 years, playing this really avant-garde style of football, which has led Calafiori to go to Arsenal for more than 50 million. But this is his first big job. It's his first job where he's going to have to deal with 4 competitions: Coppa Italia, Serie A, Champions League, and the Club World Cup at the end of the season as well. And you look at this squad, and it's quite a hard pivot from a squad that's been built for Max Allegri and the style that he plays, and the squad that Thiago Motta needs. And they've also, it's not an unusual move by Juventus or Italian clubs, but they've said, look, all of these guys that we've got here, they're not part of our plans anymore. We're marginalising these players. And you look at them, like Wojciech Szczesny, the goalkeeper who's been there, succeeded Buffon and did a really good job of succeeding Buffon. We're paying you off. Thanks, Wojciech, you're out. You've got some sort of squad players like Rugani, Mattia De Sciglio, even Artur and players like that. But then you've got like Federico Chiesa, where they're just like, you've got a year left on your deal. Go and find yourself a new club. We're not prepared to give you a new contract at the terms that you want. You still haven't found a club? Okay, we'll knock the price down. We'll let you go for 15 million. And so you've got almost a team of players on the sidelines at Juventus who've been told to find themselves a club. And in the meantime, you've got this kind of Thiago Motta group of like 14 or 15 players, where the only wingers are Kenan Yildiz and Timothy Weah. And you're like, they've still got a lot of work to do, I think, in the next 2 weeks of the market to really convince me that there's a group of players there that can challenge for the title. For me, it'll be Napoli who are the big improvers, because it's not hard to improve on last year. They've got Antonio Conte. For now, they've still got Osimhen. They're going to keep Kvaratskhelia. And I think some of the deals that they've done, if Spinazzola can stay fit, he'll be very good on the left-hand side. They got the best centre-back, the most hyped centre-back in Italy before Calafiori had the Euros they had, which is Alessandro Buongiorno from Torino. So I think he's perfect for Conte. I think they'll be immediately competitive in the way that Conte's sides are immediately competitive. And then there's Milan.
What are the odds of McTominay and Gilmour pitching up at the San Paolo?
Well, they've kept bidding for Gilmour. They really like him. He must have been at Chelsea when Conte was there. He must have had had a look at him at that time. I think that's quite an interesting move. I mean, they need to replace Zielinski, who, as I've just mentioned, has gone to Inter. McTominay, I think this is a classic case of sort of agents are given a list of players that Man United perhaps would like to move on, and you go around different clubs in Europe and Italy and you say, what do you think about this player? The big curiosity with Napoli is Osimhen has said, I want to leave, but he's got like a 130 million euro clause in his contract. No one's going to pay that. And then you've got a very proud owner in Aurelio De Laurentiis who's probably not going to accept anything less than that, or significantly less than that. And so it wouldn't surprise me if Osimhen is still at the club come the end of the transfer window. But Antonio Conte wants Romelu Lukaku. He wants that reunion.
Can they get Lukaku without selling Osimhen, or it's just not financially possible?
I think they can sign him without selling Osimhen, but they have to move Osimhen. And in the same that they can't have both their wages at the same time. I think it would be, because Napoli, and this is another reason why people are quite bullish about their chances of contending for the title, they're not in Europe, which is the Conte recipe for success in his first year at Juventus, Chelsea. First year at Chelsea. So if you're not in the Champions League, you're not going to have a lot of chance to rotate players, and you're not going to have the money to pay a wage bill, which includes Lukaku and Victor Osimhen.
Makes sense.
Yeah.
Milan were Inter's nearest rivals last season.
Yeah, by 19 points.
By 19 points. Paolo Fonseca now in charge, Stefano Pioli, who's no longer on fire but has instead been fired.
Yeah.
Yeah. And Alvaro Morata. They brought an Alvaro in.
Yes. Yeah, they have. I mean, Morata, who, has obviously had a good summer. He's the captain of the Spain team that won the Euros. One goal.
No, but one goal in 7 games. I'm just saying.
And he's just such a likable character, Alvaro. I think this is the same story with Matthijs de Ligt, who's gone to Man United. There is no bad player that in de Ligt's sort of life career, football career, whatever, goes from Ajax, Juventus, Bayern, Man United. He's not a bad player if he does that. It's the same with Morata. If you have a career where you go from Real Madrid, Juventus, Real Madrid, Chelsea, Atletico Madrid, Milan, it's because you're a good player.
Yeah, I agree.
And but I mean, Morata, the curious thing is with him is that he's always been this this player who his mindset has been very important. When he was at Juventus, there was this sense that you needed to always put your arm around him. He was quite moody and that sort of thing. You need to lift his spirits if you missed a chance and all this sort of thing. So how Alvaro feels is very important. When he's just joined Milan and he's broken up with his wife. So that was a big story. Yeah. So it's like what Morata is Milan getting? Are they getting the guy who had a really good season for Atletico first half of last season?
First half of last season.
He's just won something with Spain.
Well, then presumably
his wife
that good football must have come against the backdrop of marital strife, which is now that period has ended. He's a new guy.
Yeah,
freedom,
Milan.
I mean, if there's one city where you want to be free,
life, Kaiser. But yeah, I mean, there's a lot of skepticism around Milan on the basis that people look at Paulo Fonseca's body of work and say, what has he won outside of Shakhtar? They don't look at the style of play that they've got. They don't look at how he's brought a lot of young players on. And there is a feeling with Paulo Fonseca that, for example, with Pioli last year, the group of players they signed this time last year, Chukwueze, Pulisic, Ruben Loftus-Cheek, some of these players were kind of held back by Stefano Pioli's style play. They believe that Fonseca will kind of raise the ceiling for those players and they'll play better. They've had a good pre-season. If you read anything into pre-season, you shouldn't. But in terms of performances, they've beaten Man City, Barcelona, Real Madrid. They beat Monza in the Berlusconi Trophy, which everyone knows is a massive deal. It's bigger than the Champions League. They've kept their best players. It's staggering to me, not because of the history and tradition of Milan, but the economic landscape of Serie A, that they have been able, through prudent management of the club, to keep Mike Maignan, to keep Theo Hernandez, and to keep Rafa Leao. Those guys are Leao and Theo will be starting their, I think, 6 seasons with Milan, which I find it insane that Theo Hernandez is still a Milan player. Theo Hernandez, for me, is probably the best left-back in the world, one of the best left-backs in the world. And it's only maybe this trend that you see at Man City and Arsenal where, we're going to play centre-backs as full-backs who come inside, or we're going to play 4 centre-backs. That is surely stopping this guy from getting kind of a move to a big Premier League team or even somewhere like Bayern. Because you look at it and
Davis will go to Real Madrid next season as a free agent because it's his last year of his contract, and then I expect them to go for Theo.
So I think Milan will be really good this year.
But Milan good, Napoli good, Juve maybe. What about the Roman sides, James?
Ooh, for Lazio, I think they've made a good coaching appointment in Marco Baroni. And people will be like, Marco, who? What? And the thing is, Baroni has broken out, I suppose, of this. I get teams promoted, Benevento, Lecce, to the guy who went to Hellas Verona last year when the Guardia di Finanza, which is kind of Italy's financial police, basically said, okay, we're seizing the company that owns Hellas Verona. You're going to have to sell all your players in January. And that happened, and he still kept them up. And that was kind of low-key coach of the year kind of job that he did. But he goes to Lazio, where Igor Tudor had a good 3 or 4 month spell.
He did.
When he came in after Sarri resigned. And Tudor basically said, "You're selling Daichi Kamada, or you're not keeping Daichi Kamada. That's a non-negotiable for me. Ciao for now. See you later." And so Baroni got the job, but they've sold Immobile, who I know you're very upset about, James. He's gone to Besiktas. Luis Alberto is going to play in, I can't remember, it's Qatar.
Yeah, I think.
And then Felipe Anderson, who was expected to go to Juve, has gone back to Brazil to play for Palmeiras.
Nice.
And so all of those, the Lazio players that were the core of Simone Inzaghi's team, Immobile, Milinkovic-Savic, Luis Alberto, Felipe Anderson, they've all gone. So it's a big, big transition at Lazio.
Across town, De Rossi with his first full season, hopefully, with Roma.
I don't want to talk about Roma because they're forcing Paulo Dybala out of the club, which,
I knew you'd be upset with that.
I'm quite upset as well, because until a couple of days ago, it felt like, we got through the whole transfer window and he's still there.
Yeah, and his buyout clause had expired as well, which was 12 million.
Incredible.
Which was there for all of July.
Well, we won't talk about Roma or the fact they picked up Artem Dovbyk from.
Yeah, well, that's
Girona.
that's an expensive signing.
Yeah.
40 million. He's 27, but he's had a couple of good years. Top scorer in Spain with Girona. But it's a Roma team that has no stars apart from the coach Daniele De Rossi. And is De Rossi a star as a coach yet? Not yet. He's still learning his trade. But yeah, Lukaku's gone, Dybala's going, Mourinho's no longer there. So I think it'll be tough for them to break into the top four.
Okay. The promoted clubs, exciting set of teams there. Welcome back, Parma. Welcome back, Venezia.
Yeah, and
after
Drake.
21 years away, welcome back, Como. What a different side they are now to the one that left Serie A under Enrico Preziosi.
Yeah. Preziosi not popular after bankrupting Como. Remember, he also claimed to have taken Lionel Messi on trial to Como, which Barcelona, when asked about that, denied. But yeah, no, they have the richest owners in Serie A, these Indonesian billionaire brothers who, sort of made their money kind of selling these clove cigarettes to people in South Asia.
Yeah. They were when I was in Rome, they were very popular, those cigarettes.
Oh, yeah?
Yeah.
Oh, right. Okay, so you funded Como in some way.
Not with me. I don't partake, but I remember they were quite the thing.
Okay. They signed Rafa Varane. He played in the Coppa Italia, got injured.
Yeah.
I don't think anyone could have seen that coming.
Pepe Reina's there, Alberto Moreno, Andrea Bellotti, goal scorings. Andrea Bellotti. And Cesc Fabregas now officially the manager after he got his badges.
Yeah, and they play Juventus on Monday night in Turin.
And that'd be good.
Which should be good because, Cesc did have a brief spell in charge of Como last year, but he's still an unknown quantity, I would say. I spoke to him back in February, and even though he wasn't in the dugout, it was Osh Roberts who was there. They were basically saying, we want to be a team that plays higher up the pitch, has more of the ball, but there's only so much you can do when you've got like these players from Serie C, Italians in midfield. They've now got more Spanish players, be it Pepe Reina in goal, be it Moreno, players who are used to a bit more technically sharper. But I'm still curious to see how Cesc does in his first full year as a coach. They will be coming up against a team that, in Juve, yes, it is very much a work in progress, but Juventus still have more quality. I think if we've got any American listeners, I think this is maybe the year for like Tim Weah, the winger who joined from Lille last year, who was made to play fullback or wing back under Allegri. Didn't really play because he played McKennie out there instead. Weah's been starting throughout preseason on the right wing for Juve. So, I think it'll be a good measure of where Juve are at, I think, against a Como side that are a big club disguised as a newly promoted club.
Excellent. That's going to be happening this weekend. It all begins Serie A with Parma Fiorentina on Saturday, 5:30, and Genoa Inter also on Saturday. Next up for us, going to turn our thoughts to the Bundesliga. Woo. Bundesliga doesn't get going, Jules, till the weekend after this one because, Germany.
Yeah.
They do have a Super Cup this weekend.
Indeed.
It's Bayer Leverkusen, the champions.
Against Bayer Leverkusen, the winners of the cup.
Against the runners-up from the Bundesliga, who are Bayern. No, it's not.
No.
It's Stuttgart. Seb Stafford-Bloor joins us now. Seb, where in the wide world of Germany are you?
I am back in Hamburg, Jimbo.
Yes. All right. Well, we had a great time with you roaming that fine land during the Euros, but let's talk a bit about Bundesliga now. You've got the Super Cup coming up this weekend. Bayer Leverkusen against runners-up Stuttgart. I've just said that before we go to Seb. Yes, won't mention that.
Well, a bit of an emotional challenge, really, because where do you go next? At least domestically for Leverkusen, there hasn't been an awful lot of renewal in the squad. There haven't been any significant exits at all, even though we kind of expected Jeremy Frimpong to move. The market isn't quite what we thought it would be for him, so he's still there for now. And a couple being added, Martin Terrier has come in from Ligue 1, Jules will know. And really interesting, centre-back, Janil Balossian from Rennes, who Leverkusen have this thing where they want to make sure they've got the players in a year or two before their bigger assets are sold. So you can clearly see him as a left-sided centre-back, as potential long-term replacement for Edmund Tapsoba or Odilon Kasunu. But as much as it was, and I think it kind of begs the question, like, how do you keep the strings quite as taut as they were last season? Because the standards they set were absolutely amazing, clearly Leverkusen. So very interesting. And I'm not really sure what to expect, actually, Jimbo.
Xavi Alonso's staying on. He clearly thinks there's something to be done there, and it might be in the Champions League, of course. So many other clubs that are looking to take that title back from them. He clearly thinks there's something to be done there, possibly in the Champions League. Bayern Munich, though. Bayern Munich, Seb. Vincent Kompany. First trophyless season since, over 10 years for them last time around. How's it going so far for their surprise choice of a replacement for Thomas Tuchel?
Cautiously, it's going quite well. I've seen a little bit of Bayern in pre-season, and it's been quite impressive. Admittedly, a lot of the challenges anticipated for Kompany were as and when the bigger players, the ones who were involved in Euro 2024, came back, and the big kind of political presences in the dressing room. But I caught them during their time in Seoul, when they were there for about 72 hours, and it was impressive. Kompany made this big show, actually, of, as he has throughout preseason, of make sure everybody knows that he knows his place. He's not going to be a big ego. He's going to be a kind of an anti-Thomas Tuchel. So he's made a point of saying things like, the transfer market is really not my domain. It's not my responsibility. I'm just happy with what I have here. He's got a little bit of a weird tendency when he's asked questions to sort of demonstrate his tactical thinking publicly. So at the moment, when someone from the Bavarian press asks him about a little facet that they've noticed in pre-season, he jumps off into tactically dense explanations, which, if I was being cynical, I would say is an attempt to kind of to reassure people that he is actually credible in this job. He does have the requisite tactical knowledge. So he's showing his working out loud at every chance. But I do like a lot of what Bayern have done. The big headline arrival really, too, Michael Olise, but also João Palhinha, who feels like exactly the right player at exactly the right time, because so many of Bayern's issues, not just last season, but heading back really to the departure of Javi Martinez, have stemmed from their inability to win the ball in midfield, to protect the back four or back three, whatever you're using. And kind of like, dominoes falling, a succession of issues has arisen from that. Palhinha, is there a better tackler in European football even? I think not. Certainly not a more entertaining player. It's like watching someone run through a forest with an axe, chopping down ball carriers. So he's a great addition. Olise is going to be very exciting based on what we saw during the Olympics. And I think people forget, because the slant on last season was so negative, I think people forget how many interesting young developing players there still are there. Like everybody knows Monsieur Harry Kane, up and comer. Who knows what he'll become as a player in Europe?
Can Vincent Kompany get him pressing?
Yeah, can he press?
Vincent Kompany needs to get him fit first.
Okay.
Like Kane played against Tottenham at White Hart Lane over the weekend, and it was kind of like he was obligated to play. It'd been a bit weird if he didn't, but he clearly wasn't fit. So he was sort of shoved onto the pitch and kind of shuffled into the action.
A little bit like the Euros final.
A little bit like the Euros final. He had about as much impact in that game as he did against Spain, unfortunately. But look around. Matthias Tel is, I think, a wonderful player in the making. Yet to see whether he plays wide left or as a true number 9. Don't know. Musiala is Musiala. We know about that. Alex Pavlovic, probably the unluckiest player at the Euros, who got a terrible bout of tonsillitis on the tournament's eve. Wonderful, wonderful orchestrator in the making, I think. And so you put someone like Polinia in the center of that mix, and all of a sudden it looks pretty healthy. And people forget Neuer's still there, Kimmich's still there, Sané is still there. I think the club would rather have moved on players like Kingsley Coman over the summer. I think it was time for probably a break there. Good player though he remains. But things are positive. It feels very strange to describe Bayern Munich as competitive heading into a new Bundesliga season, but then sign of the times, right? That they've got some ground to make up. And but I'm interested. They get going against Wolfsburg a week Sunday. I'll be there, and I'm really looking forward to that. Real new era feel to it, I think.
A lot of fresh young blood at the top of the Bundesliga, or among the leading clubs. Kompany at Bayern Munich, of course, Xabi Alonso, who's been at Bayern for a while now, but Nuri Sahin at Dortmund, who have also been busy in terms of their transfer activity. Seb, how do they look to you?
Let's wait and see. You're right. Their transfer activity is interesting because, the two headline departures, clearly Marco Reus and Mats Hummels. Reus has seen better days. It was the right time for him to move. He was a kind of, not quite a peripheral figure, but moving towards the fringes of the squad by the time he departed. Hummels, despite his age, was a vastly, vastly important player. He was magnificent in the Champions League final. He was excellent in their run to it. They've replaced him with Valdemar Anton from Stuttgart, who, good player. I like him. I don't think he's Hummels' equal. So we'll see how that goes. He will be expected to form a partnership with Nico Schlotterbeck. So interesting to see how that goes. Ian Maatsen did not, kind of expected him to make his move from Chelsea permanent. He was on loan last season. Didn't do it, went to Villa instead. Dortmund have loaned Jan Couto from Manchester City, who La Liga watchers will remember from Girona a few years ago. So good player, but let's see how he adjusts. Maatsen was absolutely excellent on the left of that defence as a kind of an inverting fullback last season. So those will be big shoes to fill. At the top of the formation, I think it's really interesting. So Serhou Guirassy has moved from Stuttgart, which everybody knew was going to happen for about 3 months before it did eventually get done. But there were complications. Guirassy didn't quite fail a medical, but Dortmund took a step back from the deal at the last minute. They met his release clause, but there were some issues in the medical based on an injury he suffered on international duty right at the beginning of the summer. So they hesitated, then came back and were kind of reassured that it was a short-term injury, no surgery was going to be necessary. And yet Guirassy's still not available. So we'll see what's going to happen there. In the meantime, Niklas Füllkrug, 31-year-old Niklas Füllkrug, has been sold to West Ham for almost double what the club paid for him a year ago. So good business. And with that money, Pascal Gross is already here, which is good news. I think Gross is a boyhood Dortmund fan, so it's a lovely story. A little bit of seniority replacing, some of what's been lost in Reus and Hummels leaving. But the other players come in who I'm really interested in Max Bayer from Hoffenheim, who won his first caps with Germany ahead of Euro 2024, was the highest scorer outside of the clubs in the top 6 last season. Playing for Hoffenheim, were not a terribly strong side, showed himself to be a really good finisher in the making. I think with Bayer, there's a project there. This is not a finished article. This is not someone that's going to power you to the Bundesliga title and not overcome the distance that Dortmund fell behind Leverkusen, Munich, obviously even Stuttgart. Remember, they finished 5th last season. But a really good player in the making. And it feels a bit more in keeping with the kind of player that Dortmund used to sign. So a player that they can cultivate and develop. And remember, from an executive standpoint, this is really a new era. Lars Ricken has become so as you describe him as a sporting CEO. So he sits right at the head of the sporting hierarchy, with Sebastian Kehl, sporting director there. And there is Shaheen, who was an assistant brought in last January, made a huge impact with the players. A lot of people were really impressed, not just by the quality of his coaching, but by his seniority, his authority, his willingness to challenge players in training sessions. Very vocal. And yeah, high hopes. Pre-season, bit of a mixed bag, Jimbo. Feels like some of those ideas are yet to settle and take root, but we'll see. I certainly think the endless conversation about Edin Terzic's future and whether he was only there because of his relationship with Aki Vatska, that had to end, as did the kind of the troubling dynamic between him and Mats Hummels, which flared up just before the Champions League final, which was a ridiculous thing to happen on the week of a major European final. Clearly, both have gone. So this, again, feels like a turning of the page moment for Dortmund. Not sure how good they'll be, but it's a start of something new.
All right. Well, very promising then for this Bundesliga season. One that features as new teams coming up from Bundesliga 5. St. Pauli, although they've lost their manager, the man who took them there, Fabian Hützeler, to Brighton. But also, for the first time ever, Holsten Kiel, the Storks.
Yeah, this is a lovely story. So a couple of years ago, right at the end, I suppose right in the middle of the COVID pandemic, Kiel were odds on for Zweite Bundesliga promotion. And because of cancellations, delays, teams having to go into quarantine, not being able to fulfill fixtures, they were left with, I think, if memory serves me, about 5 games to play in 12 days or something ridiculous that just sapped their energy, destroyed their promotion campaign, and left them in a relegation playoff that they lost. And it's kind of heartbreaking. They've been the best team in the division all season. They just ran out of gas. So last season, absolutely deserved to win promotion. Marcel Rapp is a really interesting coach. I wouldn't say there are any distinguishing features to Kiel, apart from maybe a really good set piece team. So keep an eye on their design with what they do, because they don't have a lot of firepower. Right at their heart, they still have, do you remember Lewis Holtby, who's now 33? Obviously, sort of when he was at Schalke, everybody expected an awful lot. Had that funny period at Spurs, went back to Haasval, didn't quite work out. Ended up at Blackburn, which I think a lot of people have forgotten. Football Manager fans will see their eyes light up at Fiat Arp. Do you remember the former wunderkid from Bayern Munich, who people expected to be a kind of a German number 9 by now? Didn't really happen for him, but he's found a little bit of goal-scoring form at Kiel. And there's, as there always should be with a newly promoted team, kind of veteran, wily playmaker. So keep an eye out for Steven Skripski. He's like a fun attacking midfielder. Will be their main source of goals this season, I would have thought. And they'll be fine. I think, let's put it in their context. Kiel play in front of 15,000 fans. They're not a big club. Their transfer record, which they broke this summer, is 1.8 million euros. That should give some clue as to kind of the scale of the club and the challenge they're now facing. It's very much like without possibly the backstory, it's very much like a kind of another Heidenheim from last season. A really good story, but they'll need to ride their luck a little bit in the Bundesliga, I think.
All right. So that's magnificent. I hope you enjoyed the Super Cup on Saturday, and look forward to hearing more about that and the latest news ahead of the Bundesliga kickoff coming up next weekend, when you join us next Tuesday on the European Totally Football Show. That brings us to the end, though. Cheers, Seb. That brings us to the end, though, I believe, of today's preview edition. We barely scratched the surface of this European season.
It's good to start the season slowly and then.
Absolutely. My mouth's watering anyway. So I hope yours is too, listener. And remember, you can always find us here recounting the latest continental doings on Tuesdays, sometimes Mondays on a Champions League week.
Oh, really?
Yeah.
Okay. Or we can do Tuesdays and Wednesdays this year.
We're free.
Sorry, just getting clearer and clearer. Yeah. Anyway, many thanks to James and to Jules, Pol earlier on, Seb now, Rachel and Charlie in the booth, you listener, especially if you sent in a question. And if you have one next week, send it in. Love those. For now, from all of us here, it's goodbye. The Totally Football Show podcast is available 3 times a week, bringing you all the football news you could reasonably be expected to care about. We've got views, we've got stats, we've got analysis, we've got some of the best football writers around and the whole thing is absolutely free. So have a listen on Spotify or Apple Podcasts or all the usual places by clicking on the link below.